CQ, CQ, CQ. This is Kilo 5 Charlie Lima Mike, and you are listening to the Everything Ham Radio podcast. This is episode number 20, and we're going to be continuing our talk on HF radio and things you can do on it. More specifically, we're going to be talking about contesting. This podcast is released every Tuesday morning. You can find the show notes and all the links that we're going to be talking about in today's episode at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/20. That's the number 20. So, let's get started. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Everything Ham Radio podcast. My name is Curtis, K5CLM, and I am your host for this podcast. Today we're going to be continuing our discussion about HF radio and things that you can do on it, and more specifically we're going to be talking about contesting. Now contesting is kind of a beast to its own, and it's like something that everybody probably will do at least one time in their life, or in their amateur radio experience, whether that be through a field day or whether that be like a QSO party or a kids day or some of the other topics that we're going to be talking about today. So there's several things that we're going to be talking about, several different contests that we're going to be talking about, but there's also several others that I'm not going to be talking about but are going to be included in the show notes. Now, as well as all these, there's going to be a complete list as published by the ARRL of the remaining contests that are going to be going through the rest of this year. I've also included a link to the what's that guy's call sign? I cannot remember it. The WA7 BNM contest calendar. He has a lot of contests going on, QSO parties and whatnot. So check out his link. It is in the show notes. And I guess let's go ahead and get started with it. So first thing we're going to be talking about is Kids Day. And the reason we're going to be talking about Kids Day first is because it's actually coming up real soon. As in, like, 3 weeks away, I think. It's on June 18th, and it runs from 1800 UTC to 2359 UTC. So the object of Kids Day is basically to foster the imaginations, or basically trying to get kids into the hobby. This happens twice a year, and it's put on by the ARRL, and like I said, it's helped to promote amateur radio to the youth. Kids Day was designed to give the on-the-air experience to young people, and hopefully foster interest into getting a license of their own. It was basically intended for us old hams to have a chance to share our stations and our love of amateur radio with our children, or with Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts or whatever. So basically this, it's basically a way to get kids on the air. And in some ways, and especially around here, I see that it's really hard to get kids. And by kids I'm saying under the age of about 21, maybe 25, something like that. It seems to me, and it may be just in my area, and I may be totally off on this, but it seems like it's getting really hard to get younger people and the new generation into amateur radio. Now, I have seen people talk about their clubs and stuff, saying that they have all these kids involved. I've seen things like amateur radio clubs in college universities, which is great, but for the most part, it seems to me like it's getting really hard to get the youth involved. So this event is maybe a way to do that. So, if you want to try it. There is a suggested exchange and a list of suggested frequencies on the show notes for today, so check that out. And have fun, enjoy the time with your kids. It gives you the opportunity to to get involved and to do that with your kids. So that's really cool. Right along those lines of kids, and I mentioned Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts a little bit ago, but there is a thing called Jamboree on the Air. Jamboree on the Air is basically a Boy Scout, Girl Scout contest, if you will, that is put on by the Boy Scouts of America, and it's basically for helping Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts get on the air and get their amateur radio badge. It happens like in 2015. I put out a blog post called, it was titled Jamboree in there. I will have a link to it in the show notes. But it was the middle of October 16th through 18th is when it was, and there was like upwards of 750,000 scouts participating in this, and some 6,000 stations in 150 countries. So there was a lot of people that took part in this. So if next year, when it comes around, if you want to get on the air with a Boy Scout troop or something like that and help show them the ropes, so to speak. But there is links to my post and also to the official Jamboree on the Air website in the show notes. Now, the Big Kahuna. This is probably the most commonly known amateur radio event out of all the other events, and that is Field Day. Field Day happens on the fourth full weekend of June, and this year it goes from June 25th at 1800 UTC to June 26th at 2059 UTC. Now there is some rules that you have to follow to work that entire time frame. You have to, in order to work the entire time frame, you have to actually start setting up your station at 1800 UTC. So if you set it up beforehand, I think you can set it up on the Friday beforehand, but then you can only work from 1800 to 1800. So check out the official rules for all the information, and there is a link in the show notes for this. But Field Day, basically, and I'm sure all of you know this, but I'm going to say it anyways. The objective of Field Day is to work as many stations as possible on any and all amateur radio bands, with the exception of 60, 30, 17, and 12. You cannot use those bands during Field Day. And to learn to operate in abnormal situations in less than optimal conditions. Now, 15 years ago when I started really working with Field Day, and I actually participated in, I think, a little bit further back than that, but I think about 15 years ago was when my club actually had their own station. You know, there's many things to consider. Do you set up early? Do you wait until late? What's your, are you going to have enough operators to work, and whatnot. So there's many things that you have to set up, and basically it was for, going out, setting up in a temporary situation using generators or solar power and batteries or something other than commercial power and something other than a permanent station. It's basically set to teach us as amateur radio operators how to set up a station and operate a station in subpar or less than ideal situations. It might be raining. Well, you're sitting outside. Set up a tent and figure it out. Because in actual emergency, you're going to have to do that anyway. So that's really the objective behind Field Day. But yeah, it's Field Day is really awesome event to take part in because there's so many people that are operating with it. I mean, I've seen pile-ups that last for hours, and I've talked to people all over the world. Most of the time, I talk to people just here in the U.S. or in certain areas. Maybe one year I'll get a lot of people from, say, California or that area, that end of the country, and then the following year I might get a lot of people from the New England area or something like that, and not a lot from California. So, it really depends on band conditions, and it depends on your setup and stuff like that. But you also get those stations, like Brazil, Britain, Italy, Africa. You get all these different places that maybe you don't necessarily get to talk to very often. That was my first out-of-country contact, was my first field day. And, granted, I haven't had a whole lot since then either, unfortunately, because I don't get on HF very much. But, field day is a great opportunity for both hams and non-hams alike to actually get on the air and get to talk to people from all over the world, basically. So, with it coming up really soon, if your club is getting ready to do field day, send me a message, tell me where it's going to be at, and I'm actually going to have a post on just field day itself a little later. I believe it's going to be the Tuesday before field day, if memory serves. So we're going to be talking about it a little bit further, so I'm not really going to get into it all that much today. But we are going to be talking about other things in the coming weeks that have to do with field day as well. So we're going to move on. Next on my list is the Rookie Roundup. Now, the Rookie Roundup is basically to encourage newly licensed operators, or rookies, in North America to operate the HF bands and experience competitive amateur radio operating. Now, for rookies, what rookies means in this instance is any operator that has been licensed this year and the 2 years prior. So if you've had your license for less than 3 years, you're a rookie, and you can participate in this. And they have, I believe it's 3 different things throughout the year on different modes that you can participate in. The one that is coming up, the next one is going to be August 21st of this year, and it's going to be using RTTY. The first one of this year was back in April, on the 17th. They used single sideband. So the voice communication part of the Rookie Roundup for this year is over. You have the RTTY one coming up in August, and then in December you have CW. So, if you're a rookie and you want to get your feet wet, so to speak, check out the Rookie Roundup. You do get awards, I believe, for being... I believe it's just a participation award. Nope. The excuse me. The top 5 scoring rookies in each U.S. call area, Canadian province, and Mexico call area, and DX will get a electronic certificate. There'll be no national winners that will be recognized, and a commemorative participation certificate will be available for download for every rookie operator that submitted a score. So if you participate, you get a certificate. If you are one of the top 5 in your area, in your call sign area, mine would be 5. So if I was the top, one of the top 5, I would get a certificate saying that. But yeah, so this is a good way if you're a new ham to get going in HF and trying out the different modes, seeing which one works for you. Whether it's voice, whether it's digital communications with RTTY, or whether it's a CW. So if you're thinking about trying to learn CW, now would be the time to get started and practice. If you need some help learning CW, give Dan KB6NU a shot, and I'll have links to his website in the show notes as well. He is the self-proclaimed CW geek, and he can help you, or at least point you in the right direction on how to learn CW. Okay, last on my list for this episode is QSO parties. Now, QSO parties can range from anything from a club level to a state level to a national level. You might have a QSO party for your club. You might have a statewide QSO party. which is actually coming up. There is one that's coming up real soon. So if you are in Alabama, or just like, talking on HF, the Alabama QSO party is coming up on June 4th, from 1600 Zulu to June 5th at 0400 Zulu. So it's only a couple hours long. It's only 12 hours long. But everybody in the state of Alabama that's going to be participating in this, basically you're trying to make as many contacts as possible in as many counties as possible in the state. So yeah, check it out. Back in 2014, the ARRL hosted a Centennial QSO party, which actually went all year long. Went from January 1st, 2014 to December 31st, 2014. And there was awards given away for that too. So there is a whole bunch of QSO parties that are listed on the WA7BNM contest calendar. So check out the link in the show notes for listings of all the QSO parties and all the other contests that are coming up. Like I said, check out the show notes. There is a bunch of contests that are listed on the ARRL website, as well as the WA7BNM website of upcoming things. Just to kind of highlight a couple of them, of course, we have Kids Day that's coming up in June, the third Saturday in June. Field Day is the fourth full weekend in June. There is a 10 gigahertz and up contest, leg 1. That is the third full weekend in August. The second part of the Rookie Roundup is in August. There is a September VHF QSO party that's in September. A School Club Roundup in October. So if you want to help your school after school gets back in session to get some of the students active in amateur radio, you might go down and talk to one of the teachers down there, maybe the science teacher, and have like a school club type thing and participate in that in October. There is the 160 meter contest and the 10 meter contest in December, and then the final Rookie Roundup the third Sunday in December. So there are several contests that are coming up. There is a bunch of QSO parties and other contests that are on the WA7BNM website that I'm not going to go over, so check those out. So I guess that about wraps it up for contesting, but if you enjoy contesting, this is what I would like for you to do. I would greatly appreciate if you would share your experience in contesting. What do you like about contesting? What's your favorite part of it? What's your setup? Do you participate often? Things like that. Let me know in the show notes. Leave a comment below and share your experience with us. I would greatly appreciate it and know that all y'all would like it too. So, are you a contester? If so, leave a comment below and give us kind of a comment, so to speak. So, with that, I guess we'll wrap it up. And move on to a couple other things. Alright, so like I've said before in previous episodes, I have to share this. My wife started her very own blog describing our journey through the foster care system and other things that have to do with being a parent. So if you're a parent, if you're in the foster care system, if you just want to learn a little bit about foster care, head on over to her blog at morethansafe.com and read some of the posts that she's posted there. She would greatly appreciate it. I would greatly appreciate it. And for the most part, she's kind of a sponsor for this show, because she's helping pay for a lot of the stuff as coming out of our pockets. So please head on over there and help support her growth. Speaking of supporting, if you would like to support this podcast and the blog, you can do that really easily. There's a link at the bottom of the show notes to make a one-time donation through PayPal. But if you'd like to do more than that, you can check out my Patreon page at everythinghamradio.com/Patreon. You can subscribe with $1 a month, $5 a month, $10 or $25 a month. Each level will have different rewards, so to speak, and I'm actually going to be adding some in the coming months as well. Things like Everything Ham Radio hats or t-shirts. I'm still working on those. I'm trying to get them set up somewhere, so if you're interested in buying them outright, you can do that as well. So continue to check back. I will have an announcement on a future podcast on when I will get those set up. This is a entirely voluntary basis, and all the content on this podcast and my website will remain to be free as it is right now. But if you would like to help support this podcast and this blog, please do one of the two things that we talked about. That is about it for the announcements. I do have a public service announcement that I'm going to be playing up until Field Day that is put on by the ARRL. So stand by for that one.
For over 100 years, radio has been at the forefront of new technology. Ham radio operators around the world will have their annual Field Day event June 25th and 26th. Field Day is the national open house of amateur radio, and you are invited. Come be a part of the science, skill, and service ham radio brings to your community. Find a Field Day site near you at www.arrl.org/fieldday.
Alright, and we're back. Wasn't that a really nicely done public service announcement for Field Day? Yeah, I'm going to be doing that every episode between now and Field Day, so get used to it, I guess, maybe. Anyways, on to our Amateur Radio Club Spotlight for this episode. This spotlight was submitted by Joel Case, KM4TPF. Thank you very much, Joel, for your submission, and thanks for listening. The club we're going to be talking about today is the Cumberland Plateau Amateur Radio Club, the CPARC. You can find them at www.cparc.net. You can also find links to their website in my show notes. They meet every Tuesday of the month at 7 p.m. And I am going to go with they meet at the Cumberland County High School. They actually had two different locations listed on their website, and I tried to send them an email. Unfortunately, I didn't get a response back before I had to continue recording. So I'm going to go with what they had on their main page, that they meet at the Cumberland High School. So if it turns out to be something different, I will correct it in the show notes, hopefully before this goes live. Okay, the club owns two repeaters. They own a 146.865 repeater and a 443.850 repeater. Both of those repeaters have a 118.8 tone, and they are Yaesu System Fusion repeaters. Very nice guys. Also, the 146.865 repeater is a solar-powered repeater. There is some really neat pictures on their website. If you click on, I believe it's repeater, the link on the left-hand side, you'll see the setup that they have is really nice. Great job. That is a nice way to have backup power there. So what does this club really do? Well, this club actually does quite a bit, actually. They do Field Day, and from the looks of their website, they've done it for the past several years. They do contesting. They help out with Aries type things. They have monthly training at their club meetings, and also they hang out at the local Dairy Queen weekdays between 9 a.m. and noon. So if you happen to be in Crossville, Tennessee, somewhere, whatever, during the week, check out the local Dairy Queen. Look for the ham sitting the first 2 or 3 tables in the room adjacent to the shopping center parking lot. So yeah, check that out. Thank you very much again, Joel, for the submission for this episode. And again, thanks for listening. All right, guys, that about wraps it up. All right, so one more thing that I want to say before we go. You probably noticed at the beginning of this episode that the music is different. The way that I come into the podcast is a little different. And I believe that I have explained this before, but I want to do it again, and I want y'all's opinion on it. About a month ago or so, I found out that there is another amateur radio blogger, podcaster, video blogger type thing that had the same intro music as I did. And unfortunately, he had it before I did. So I decided to stick with being unique and change it. I spent the last couple weeks or so trying to find some music that I liked, trying to figure out exactly what I was going to say, how I was going to do it, stuff like that. I actually wanted to have my wife record the intro music, but it got to the point where it was like, okay, well, I'm probably going to be doing it a little bit different every time, or having to say different stuff every time, so it's probably going to be hard for my wife to do it, unless I do my introductions and my outro the same every time. And I don't think that's really going to work with the new way that I'm doing it, so it's probably going to be me doing it again. So anyways, let me know what y'all think about the intro and also the outro here in just a second. Leave a comment in the comments below. Again, comment on do you contest? Do you like contesting? What's your station like? How many contacts have you made? What's the farthest contact that you've made? Stuff like that. Leave a comment below in the show notes. Again, you can find those at everythinghamradio.com/podcast/20. Leave those below. I would love to hear from y'all. So I guess that about wraps it up. If you like what you've heard here on this episode, please check out my blog at everythinghamradio.com. There is more information in the show notes than what's in this podcast, as well as further articles. Not so much the last couple of months or so, but there is quite a bit of articles there, and I'm trying my hardest to write more than just these podcast show notes. So head on over to my blog and check that out. While you're there, subscribe to my blog to get notifications via email on when I publish a new post or a new podcast episode. You can do that either at the bottom of the show notes. There's some boxes down there. Put your email address and stuff in there. Or you can go to everythinghamradio.com/subscribe and fill that out, and you'll get an email in your inbox with a link that you'll need to click on. So make sure you click on the link, otherwise you won't get any emails from me for those notifications. Also, please like me on Facebook at facebook.com/everythinghamradio. I've also started a new Facebook group, and there is a link in the show notes as well as on the Facebook page to that group. So please like me on Facebook on my page, and also join the group. I've learned that the page, it doesn't really work really well for communications between me and you and all of y'all together. So I decided to start a group. Please join that group. I've only got like 3 people, and I've almost got over 200 on the page. So if you've liked the page, please head on over to the group and join it, so we can have a little bit more camaraderie-ship or rag-chewing session, so to speak, on Facebook. I would love to hear from y'all, what y'all thought about it, all my episodes, my blog, stuff like that. So please join the group. Again, I will have a link in the show notes. Also, you can follow me on Twitter at K5CLM, and I have tweets that I send out on as far as when stuff is put out. So yeah, like me on there. I'm also on several other social media pages. You can find all those on the menu bar at the top of my page under social. Google Plus, LinkedIn, stumbled upon several other things. So if you are on any of those and you're not on Facebook or Twitter, you're welcome to follow me on there. Please follow me on there. Also, please subscribe to my podcast either on iTunes, Google Play. I'm trying to get on Stitcher Radio, but for some reason I can't get it. So Google Play and iTunes are the two ones that I have on right now. Also, you can listen to my podcast on my actual website itself. But until then, I guess I thank y'all very much for listening, and I'll talk to y'all next time. This is K5CLM signing out.